Dr. Lena Ross was no stranger to strange cases. As a traveling physician specializing in rural medicine, she'd seen her fair share of mystery symptoms, old folk cures, and misdiagnosed conditions. But she'd never received a letter like this. It arrived in her Seattle apartment by post, no email, no return number. The envelope was thick, the handwriting almost old-fashioned. The stamp was Icelandic. Inside was one sentence: "We have a child no one can examine. No one remembers his face. We've heard you have a gift. Please come before the first snow." No name, no signature. Just a town, Hrafntun, a place she'd never heard of. North of Akureyri, Google told her. Remote, small. Something about the handwriting, about the stillness of that single sentence made her say yes. Lena arrived in Hrafntun just before the end of October. It wasn't a village in the usual sense, just a scattering of houses along a narrow road that curled at the edge of a fjord. Behind it, mountains. Endless, snow-dusted, silent. No signal. No Wi-Fi. And whenever she tried to call anyone from her satellite phone, all she got was a dull, steady ring. The child lived in a small house at the far end of the road. The woman who answered the door, mid-30s, pale, tired, barely spoke. Her voice was soft and distant, as if she hadn't used it in days. "He'll only speak to you," she said. "Only you can see him. But not in the light." That night the mist came. It didn't roll in, it settled like something alive. Dense and low, swallowing the town in minutes. Even streetlights turned to smudges. Lena stood at her window, unable to see even the road. And then she heard it. A violin. Not nearby, but not far either. A soft, mournful melody rising from somewhere below, somewhere near the valley the villagers never mentioned. She leaned closer to the glass. In the fog near the tree line stood a man. Still. Holding something to his shoulder. A violin. And though she couldn't see his face, she knew he was looking straight at her. Lena couldn't sleep that night. The violin had stopped hours ago. The mist still pressed against the windows like breath on glass. But it wasn't the fog that unsettled her. It was the feeling that she knew him. Not in the way you know a neighbor or a stranger's face. It was deeper. In her bones. Like a name she once knew but had forgotten. She lay awake, eyes wide, until memory came not as a thought, but as a dream. A dream she hadn't had in years. It had started the week after her 25th birthday. She'd begun waking up with fragments walking through a birch forest under moonlight. A man waiting by a stone gate. A ring in her hand. She never told anyone. It lasted for 3 years. And then as suddenly as it began, the dream vanished. No goodbye, no final image. Just silence. Until now. Because in the fog, with the sound of the violin and the shape of his body in the mist, it wasn't just déjà vu, it was him. "Do you remember me?" A voice soft as wind brushed across her ears. She turned. No one was there. But the ring finger on her left hand ached. The next day, Lena asked about the valley. The villagers went quiet. One of them, an old man sitting near the dock, muttered without looking up, "No one goes down there anymore. Not since." The crossing closed. The crossing. He didn't answer. That evening, when the mist returned, Lena didn't stay in her room. She followed the music. Through the fog, past the houses, toward the woods. Her boots crunched lightly in frost and soil as the violin melody grew clearer, delicate and mournful, winding through the trees, vows like smoke. And then she saw him. Standing at the edge of the valley. Just beyond the last birch tree. No longer in shadow, no longer hiding. A man, tall hair, dark eyes like silver cloudlight. His face was exactly as she remembered, even though she couldn't have known it before. He lowered the violin. You came back. His voice calm, aching, full of years. I don't understand, Lena said. How do you know me? You knew me first, in the place between sleep and memory, where promises are made and forgotten. He stepped closer. You said you would return to me, before the snow, before the gate closed for good. Lena's throat tightened. The ring finger on her left hand burned. Who are you? His eyes glimmered not with anger, but with longing. I am the one you gave your word to, the one you loved for 3 winters in a dream that was not a dream. And I waited. Until now. Lena stood frozen. The wind had stilled, yet the mist around them moved as if alive, curling between trees like breath from another world. The man held out his hand, not forceful, not demanding, just waiting. If this is a dream, she whispered, why does it hurt? Because some dreams are memories, and some memories were lived in places your waking mind can't name. He stepped aside and motioned toward the valley. You were here once, Lena. You crossed over when you were lost, when your world had no place for you. You stayed with us for 3 winters. You laughed here. You healed here. And you loved. Lena's breath caught. Why don't I remember? Because you chose to forget. You said goodbye with a kiss and a promise, if I leave, you must let me forget. Otherwise I will never survive in their world. She looked down. Then why did you wait? Because you also said, if the snow comes and I have not returned, find me, remind me, call me back. The mist shifted. Beyond him, deeper into the valley, Lena could now see lights, soft golden, flickering like candle flames under the earth. Shapes moved between them, a world just out of reach, breathing beneath the fog. Come with me, he said. Just once more. If you still want to forget after, I will never come again. Lena hesitated. Then she took his hand, and the mist parted. The moment Lena stepped across the threshold of the valley, the air changed. It wasn't colder or warmer, it simply felt different, like the gravity shifted, like she'd passed through a veil and now the world around her breathed with things unseen. The lights beneath the earth, what she thought were candles, were lanterns hanging from tree roots that bent downward like upside-down branches. The ground glowed softly with moss that shimmered gold and violet in the mist. No village, no buildings. But there was life. Figures moved in silence. Not humans. Not entirely. Some had the grace of deer, others the height of trees. None approached. None spoke. But they bowed slightly as she passed, as if they remembered her. She clutched the man's hand tighter. What is this place? A pocket between the worlds. A place forgotten by maps, but not by hearts. This is where you lived, Lena. Where you chose to stay, until you broke your own vow. Why did I leave? He stopped walking. His eyes, so full of time, held sorrow. Because you saw a child dying in your world. A hospital hallway. A girl who had no name and no one to stay with her. You said you couldn't ignore it. That your hands were meant to heal. And you left me. Lena's chest ached. Then why didn't I remember? Because you asked me to take the memory myself, to carry it in your absence, so that you could live without longing. I failed you. He reached up, brushed his fingers to her face. You saved someone else. I waited. That is not failure. The mist swirled gently around them. But now, Lena, you remember. They stood in the clearing beneath twisted roots glowing with otherworldly lanterns. Time seemed slower here, or perhaps deeper. Lena couldn't tell whether minutes or years were passing through her chest. The man, her fiancé, though she still hadn't spoken his name, led her to a small pool, still and black, reflecting nothing but the mist itself. "This is where you first found me," he said. "You were lost, heartbroken, and the world had grown too heavy for you, and you sang." She blinked. What you sat beside this pool and sang a lullaby your mother used to hum. You said no one had ever listened to it before." I listened. I listened for 3 years. Lena felt her eyes burning. "Say your name." "You once called me Eric, a name you gave me because mine was too old to speak." She stepped closer to the water. "And what happens if I stay, then you remember everything. Every night, every vow, the fire we built from frost, the life you asked to begin here. You become who you were before you chose forgetting. And if I leave, Eric's face didn't change. His voice remained calm. I will fade, not because I die, but because I am only remembered by you. And if you leave again, there will be no one left to keep me whole." The mist stirred gently around her ankles like a child tugging at her dress. Lena looked down into the pool and saw herself, not as she was now, but as she had been laughing barefoot, braided hair with Eric beside her. They were turning in the slow dance beneath hanging stars. Their hands were full of light. She looked up. "I came back late. But you came back." Lena stood still. The pool reflected her memories, but her body remained rooted in the present. Her heart beat in 2 rhythms, one from the life she'd built with science, reason, patience, sterile rooms. The other wild, ancient, full of promises made beneath forgotten moons. Eric held her hand gently, not pleading. "Just waiting." "I don't know if I belong here anymore," she whispered. "You don't have to belong. You only have to choose." The mist pulsed. The lanterns swayed in unison. In the air, violin strings curled, softly rising not from Eric's hands, but from the memory between them. And then for the first time, Lena spoke the vow she had forgotten. "If I remember you, I stay." Eric closed his eyes. A tear, not water but silver light, slipped down his cheek. Lena took one final look behind her. There was no path, no sound from the waking world, not even the weight of her own doubt. Only this man, this love, this promise. She stepped forward into his arms. The pool stilled. The mist rose. And Hrafntun never saw her again. In the little house at the edge of the fjord, an elderly woman lights a candle each winter's first snow. She never knew the doctor who disappeared. But sometimes when the fog rolls in from the trees, she hears violin music in the valley and swears she sees 2 figures dancing just beyond the edge of what's real.